I am Orange 34, a baker at a small, cozy bakery on the outskirts of Lisbon. Today is Lily's 7th birthday, and I've spent the past few nights planning and preparing for this little celebration. I woke up at 3 this morning, my hands dusted with flour, to bake the cake myself. It wasn't fancy, just layers of sponge with cream I whisked until stiff, topped with strawberries I carefully arranged. But it was made with love, every beat of my heart poured into it. The garden behind our house is modest, with uneven patches of grass, but I've strung cheap, colorful balloons along the fence. They bob in the light breeze, reminding me that even small things can feel magical to a child. Milo, my 4-year-old, runs around chasing his sister, squealing with laughter, his little feet kicking up the earth. Lily twirls in her homemade paper crown, the one I cut and glued last night, smiling like the sun itself has decided to shine on her. Rafael, my husband, leans against the kitchen counter, half asleep, cradling a cup of coffee, trying to muster a smile. He doesn't notice how I quietly wipe a smear of frosting from Lily's cheek, or how Milo's hands are sticky with cake batter. My parents, Eduardo and Sofia, are miles away. My father working in Qatar as an engineer, my mother retired in Porto. But their presence is felt in every lesson they taught me, in every word of encouragement they sent. As I arranged the final touches, setting plates and napkins on the old wooden table, I paused to watch my children. The chaos, the laughter, the little messes. It's imperfect, yes, but it's ours. For a moment I let myself breathe, imagining that today, nothing else exists but Lily's smile and the warmth of this tiny, fragile family bubble. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories, they're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. The phone rang just as I was putting the final touches on Lily's birthday cake. I wiped my hands on my apron and answered, expecting it to be a neighbor or perhaps a message from the bakery. Instead, Eduardo's familiar face appeared on the screen, framed by the bright, sunlit office of a construction site somewhere in Qatar. His eyes crinkled in a smile, and I felt a pang of warmth. "Happy birthday, Lily," he said, his voice carrying the kind of cheer that only a grandfather could have. Lily squealed and waved at the screen, her tiny fingers reaching as if she could touch him through the glass. Milo clambered onto my lap, whispering, "Grandpa." I smiled down at him, trying to steady my nerves, until Eduardo's next words sliced through the morning like ice. "So, Lily," he said, leaning closer to the camera, "what did you buy with the 600 euros I sent last month?" My heart stopped. 600 euros? I blinked at the screen, my hand gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. 600 euros? I echoed, my voice catching in my throat. "Dad, I didn't see any money." Rafael, standing behind me, froze. His hand wavered as he lifted his coffee cup, and in a clumsy motion, he knocked it over. The porcelain smashed against the tiles, coffee spilling and steaming, the scent mingling with the sugar and vanilla still lingering in the kitchen. Milo jumped back, startled, and Lily's eyes went wide, her small mouth forming an O. The air thickened instantly, heavy with a tension I hadn't felt before. Eduardo's smile vanished, replaced by a frown that made the lines on his face sharp and unforgiving. "Orange," he said, his voice dropping to a stern, low timbre. "I have been sending 600 euros every month for the past 2 years. For birthdays, school expenses, clothes, everything for the children. You've never received it." I shook my head slowly, feeling a cold wave of confusion and disbelief. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat tightened. My words lodged in the lump that had formed there. "Dad, I swear, I never saw a single euro," I whispered. The camera flickered for a moment, and then Eduardo held up a thick stack of papers, spreading them like a fan so the sunlight glinted off each one. "Look," he said. "Here are the transfers, 24 in total, 600 euros each, all deposited into an account under Rafael's name, for my grandchildren so you wouldn't have to struggle, so Lily could have birthday parties, Christmas gifts, everything she deserves." I stared, frozen. My fingers trembled around the phone, and the back of my neck prickled with heat. 24 transfers. 14,400 euros. All of it had passed right under my nose. I tried to process the numbers, the months, the countless times I had scraped by, skipping meals so Lily and Milo wouldn't go hungry, selling a small keepsake or two just to cover school supplies, to make sure they had shoes that fit, to buy a single gift for Christmas. And Rafael, who stood behind me now, his face pale, his mouth opening and closing as if he might speak but couldn't. I turned to him slowly, my voice dropping to a trembling whisper that somehow carried across the room. Rafael, what did you do with 14,400 euros? His eyes darted away, a flicker of guilt crossing his features. I meant to tell you, he stammered. But I had already seen it, the hesitation, the fear. The truth hovered in the air, sharp and undeniable. Eduardo's voice cut through the room, rising with the authority of a man used to being obeyed. Orange, watch closely, he said, flipping through the papers to show the transfers again. Every month a deposit, every month. And you never noticed. Rafael, this money was for your children, not for yourself. I felt my knees weaken. The room spun slightly, and I had to hold onto the counter for balance. My mind raced through every birthday Lily had cried because I couldn't buy her shoes, every soccer match Milo had missed, every Christmas when I had lied and told the children Santa had forgotten them. And behind all those lies, all that pain, Rafael had been holding their money. 14,400 euros. I repeated, my voice shaking, almost a mantra. And I never knew. And they never knew. Rafael, tell me. Tell me now. Rafael's lips moved, a weak attempt at explanation, but I had already crossed the line from disbelief into fury, my heart pounding, my hands trembling. Eduardo's eyes bore into him through the screen, and I felt the weight of his disappointment, of the family's expectation, pressing down like a stone. And in that moment I realized that nothing in my life had prepared me for this, betrayal not just of me, but of Lily, of Milo, of every small hard-fought victory I had carved out for them. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same again. I didn't sleep that night. After Dad's call ended, I stood in the kitchen long after everyone had gone to bed. The room still smelled faintly of frosting and burnt coffee. The balloons on the ceiling had started to sag, one by one, as if even they were too tired to stay afloat after what had happened. My hands were sticky with sugar, but all I could feel was the tremor under my skin, the kind that comes when your world quietly collapses, not with an explosion, but with a sickening muffled thud. 14,400 euros. The number looped in my head like a curse. At first I wanted to believe there was a misunderstanding, a transfer error maybe. But when Rafael's phone lit up on the counter with a gambling notification, my heart sank. Congratulations, Rafael. Your bonus points have doubled. The words glared at me in bold blue letters. My vision blurred. I opened his phone with shaking hands. I knew his code, the one I used when he forgot it himself. And there it was. Transaction after transaction, each month like clockwork, deposits from Dad, followed by withdrawals to LoseBet, Golden Wheel, Viva Casino. My throat burned as I scrolled, seeing the rhythm of deceit. Deposit, withdrawal, deposit, withdrawal. The pattern of a man feeding a hunger he couldn't control. The screen glowed cold against my fingers. That was our money. The ballet lessons Lily begged for. The soccer uniform Milo outgrew. The Christmas presents I couldn't afford. The field trip I had to cancel because I couldn't pay the fee. Every memory rushed back in cruel detail. Lily's small face pressed against the glass window of the dance studio, watching other girls twirl in their white tutus. Maybe next time, Mommy? She had asked, her eyes full of hope. Milo holding his torn sneakers by the laces after practice. Coach said I can't play until I get new ones. And Christmas Eve, the one when I told them Santa's sleigh had broken down because there were no gifts under the tree. I'd stayed up crying in the kitchen that night, staring at a cheap candle burning low. And Rafael had been there playing cards online, the screen casting a cold light across his face. I hadn't known. I hadn't wanted to see. Now the truth was everywhere. In the silence of the house, in the exhaustion I'd worn like a second skin. When I finally walked into the bedroom, Rafael was sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone, pretending to be calm. I stood in the doorway, my voice low, measured, colder than I'd ever heard it before. How long? I asked. He looked up startled. What? How long have you been stealing from our children? The color drained from his face. Orange, please. Don't. I cut him off. Don't you dare say my name like that. He set his phone aside and rubbed his temples, the way he always did when cornered. It wasn't supposed to be like that. I thought I could double it. For us. Double it. I laughed bitterly, a sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. You took 14,000 euros meant for our kids, and you gambled it away. You bet their childhood on a screen. He opened his mouth again, but I could see the excuses forming before they even left his lips. The same tired lines about bad luck, about pressure, about trying to make things better. I didn't lose it all, he muttered, looking down. Oh, that's supposed to make me feel better? My voice rose despite myself. That you didn't lose it all? Rafael, Lily had to drop ballet because we couldn't afford 30 euros a month. Milo missed half his practices because he didn't have cleats. He winced but didn't meet my eyes. I did what I thought was right, he said quietly. What you thought was right? I stepped closer, the anger pulsing through me now. No, Rafael. You did what was easy. You hid behind my effort, behind my exhaustion, behind the lie that I could somehow make up for everything you destroyed. You let me break myself trying to keep this family afloat while you sat here. Enough, he snapped, his voice rising. You think I wanted this? You think I planned to hurt you? The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at him. This man I once loved. This man who used to bring me coffee at dawn when I stayed up baking orders, who used to kiss my forehead and call me his sweet orange. But that man was gone. What sat before me was someone else entirely. A stranger who had gambled away our trust, our children's laughter, our future. My voice trembled, but it was steady enough to hurt. You didn't just hurt me, Rafael. You hurt them. He looked up, his eyes red, glassy. I'll fix it. No, I said softly. You won't. He flinched as if the words struck him physically. I walked to the dresser and pulled out a small envelope, the one with the bills I had saved from my bakery tips. It wasn't much, maybe 50 euros, but it had been my small safety net. I tossed it onto the bed. This is what honesty looks like, I said. It's small, it's hard-earned, and it's real. Everything else you've built, every lie, every spin of that damn wheel, is fake. Rafael buried his face in his hands. Please, Orange, I'm sorry. I can fix it. I can get it back. How? I whispered. By gambling again? He didn't answer. The tears finally came. Not the kind that burst out suddenly, but the kind that slip out quietly, one after another, unstoppable. They weren't for him. They were for Lily, for Milo, for the lost birthdays and the forgotten Christmases. For the years I spent thinking I wasn't good enough when the truth was, he was stealing our chance to breathe. When I looked up, Rafael was crying too. But his tears didn't move me anymore. Something inside me had snapped, not with fury but with finality. I walked toward the window and pulled back the curtain. The city lights glimmered faintly outside, soft and indifferent. Behind me, the room was silent except for the sound of his quiet sobs. I said the last words with a calm that scared even me. You gambled away my trust. There's no winning that back. Then I turned off the light. And for the first time in years I felt a strange, painful kind of peace, the kind that comes when the truth finally stops hiding. 3 days passed in a blur. Sleep had become a stranger, food an afterthought. My mind ran in circles, numbers, transfers, dates. I tried to piece together what had been taken from us, but every discovery opened another wound. Then, early on a gray morning, I received a message. Landing in Lisbon. Don't be afraid. I've got everything. It was from Dad. Eduardo. He hadn't waited. He left Qatar the day after our video call. When I saw him at the airport, still in his work jacket, face lined with fatigue and fury, something inside me broke. For a moment I was a child again, running into his arms. But this time his embrace wasn't just comforting. It was a shield. He cupped my face and whispered, "You don't face this alone anymore, Filha." That afternoon we went to the precinct. Eduardo had brought printed bank statements, screenshots, and notarized copies of every transfer he'd ever made. He'd even marked the ones Rafael had redirected into online betting platforms. The officer on duty, a calm woman with tired eyes, looked through the file and exhaled slowly. "This is serious," she said. "You've got clear evidence of financial misconduct. Possibly fraud." The word fraud echoed in the room like a crack of thunder. I stared down at the folder on the table, the paper trembling under my hands. Each page was a reminder, not just of what Rafael had done, but of what I had allowed myself to ignore. Dad sat beside me, his jaw tight. "He used money meant for children," he said. "That's theft, plain and simple." The officer nodded. "We'll file for a protective order. You'll want a lawyer. I'll contact one from the Family Protection Unit." That's how Ana Costa entered our lives. She was in her early 40s, brisk, composed, with a voice that carried quiet authority. She reviewed the file in silence for several minutes before looking up at me. "You did the right thing," she said. "This isn't just about the money. It's about accountability. About safety." She explained the process. A restraining order, a temporary freeze on joint accounts, an evaluation of Rafael's gambling behavior to determine whether he posed a risk to the children. I listened, my fingers tracing the edge of the table, half in disbelief that my life had come to this. A legal battle against the man I once trusted with everything. That night, while the kids slept at my parents' apartment, I stayed up building a timeline. I wrote every detail, every late payment, every lie, every argument about bills. I stapled receipts, printed screenshots, and attached copies of text messages Rafael had sent from casinos or work trips that didn't exist. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. When morning came, I walked into the kitchen and found Dad sitting by the window, sipping black coffee. "He'll have to answer for this," he said quietly. Before I could respond, a loud knock echoed through the apartment. "Rafael." He stood at the door, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, clutching his phone. "We need to talk," he said, voice trembling. Dad stood behind me, his posture straight, protective. "You shouldn't be here," he said. Rafael's gaze darted to him, then back to me. "You called the police? Really, Orange? After everything we've built?" I laughed softly, though nothing about it was funny. "Everything we built? You mean everything I worked for, everything you burned?" His jaw clenched. "I made mistakes, okay? But you don't have to destroy me. You destroyed yourself," I said quietly. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You think you can take my kids? You won't. You can't. I'll fight you." Behind me, Dad moved forward, his voice calm but cutting. "You'll fight the law, not her. And this time you'll lose." The hallway fell silent. For a moment, I saw something shift in Rafael's eyes. Fear, desperation, something raw and human. Then he turned, slamming the door behind him. The next day, Ana filed for an emergency protective order. Within hours, the police served Rafael the papers. He wasn't allowed within 200 meters of me or the children. A temporary freeze was placed on all accounts until the investigation was complete. It should have felt like relief, but it didn't. Felt like grief. That night, Lily asked why Daddy wasn't home. I sat on the floor beside her bed, brushing her hair, trying to find words that wouldn't break her heart. "Daddy's sick, sweetheart," I said finally. "But Grandpa and I are taking care of things. You're safe." She nodded slowly, trusting me without understanding. And that hurt most of all, that blind, innocent trust one had to protect. Over the next few weeks, Ana and the police built the case. Eduardo stayed in Lisbon, driving me to every meeting, speaking calmly when my voice trembled. He was the anchor I hadn't realized I needed. The children began seeing a counselor, arranged by Ana's team, someone who specialized in helping kids through parental conflict. At first, Lily refused to talk. Then one session she said, "I just want Mommy to stop crying at night." I didn't realize anyone had noticed. When Rafael finally met with Ana and the investigators, he looked smaller, thinner, tired, his arrogance stripped away. He admitted to using the money irresponsibly, but denied any intent to harm. The police recorded everything. Then near the end of the meeting, something inside him cracked. "You think I'm a monster?" he said, voice shaking. "I did it for us. I was trying to win more, to give you a better life. I lost control, yes, but you don't get to erase me." Ana didn't flinch. "You erased yourself, Mr. Santos. With every withdrawal." He slammed his fist against the table, the sound sharp and ugly. If you take my children away, I swear. Enough. Dad's voice boomed from across the room, steady as stone. You've done enough. The officers moved between them, and for a moment Rafael looked like he might lunge, but then he stopped. His shoulders sagged. He sat down, head in his hands, whispering something I couldn't hear. When it was over, I stepped outside into the crisp Lisbon air. The sky was streaked with gold and gray, the kind of twilight that makes everything look fragile. Dad stood beside me, resting a hand on my shoulder. It's over, Filha, he said softly. I nodded, though part of me knew it wasn't truly over, not yet. Healing doesn't follow a court order. It takes time, tears, and truth. But for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid. The children were safe. Rafael would face consequences. And I had my father, steady, relentless, the man who had crossed oceans to protect me. As the wind brushed against my face, I whispered, "We'll be okay." And I believed it. The courtroom smelled faintly of paper and old wood. A mix of bureaucracy and consequence. I sat there, hands clasped tightly in my lap, trying to steady the tremor in my fingers. Across the room, Rafael looked hollow, his once proud posture deflated. The judge, an older woman with gray streaks in her hair, read through the documents Anna had compiled: bank transfers, police reports, screenshots, and even Lily's drawings where she'd written, "I'm not bad. I'm enough." That one made me cry quietly in the night before the hearing. When the verdict came, it wasn't dramatic. No gavel slammed, no raised voices. Just words, simple final words. Temporary custody of the children will be granted to Mrs. Orange Santos. Mr. Rafael Santos will have supervised visitation only, pending completion of rehabilitation and ongoing investigation. I exhaled slowly. Not victory. Not relief. Something quieter: survival. Rafael didn't look at me when he left the room. His lawyer whispered something, and they disappeared down the corridor. I watched his back vanish, not with anger, but with a strange calm. The man who once shared my bed now felt like a stranger whose story I had simply wandered into. Anna touched my arm gently. "This is a good start, Orange. You've taken back control." That night I opened a new bank account, just my name on the papers this time. I moved what was left of our joint savings and locked it behind layers of digital security. I printed every confirmation slip and placed them neatly in a binder labeled Future. For the first time in months, I slept through the night. In the days that followed, my life became a rhythm of rebuilding. Dad stayed longer than planned, taking unpaid leave from the project in Qatar. He spent his mornings fixing the garden fence with Milo and his evenings reading bedtime stories to Lily. His presence filled the house with quiet steadiness, the kind of peace I had forgotten existed. Mom, Sophia, arrived a week later, carrying homemade soup in her accountant's precision. She reviewed every expense, every form, every loan I didn't know Rafael had taken in my name. Then she helped set up a trust fund for the kids, sealed and protected by law. "So no one," she said, looking straight into my eyes, "can ever steal their future again." Instead of swords. Together we turned chaos into structure. I made color-coded charts for the fridge. Monday to Friday, school, bakery, homework. Saturday, market day and garden picnic. Sunday, no schedules, just pancakes and cartoons. The small things: fresh flowers on the table, the smell of bread cooling by the window, Lily's giggles when she caught the first butterfly of spring, became our therapy. Lily, though, carried more than she said. One evening, her teacher called me aside after class. "She's doing better," she said softly, "but she worries that being good will make her father come back." The words hit me harder than any argument Rafael and I ever had. That night, I sat with Lily on her bed, the room lit only by the soft glow of her nightlight shaped like a star. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "Daddy's problems aren't your fault. You don't have to fix anything to be loved." Her eyes filled and she whispered, "But he said he missed me." I hugged her tightly. "I know. And maybe one day when he's better, he can show that in the right way. But you, Lily, you don't need to do anything except be you. You're enough exactly as you are." She fell asleep with her hand still gripping mine. At the bakery, my coworkers welcomed me back with warmth that nearly undid me. The scent of yeast and sugar, the hum of the mixer, the crackle of crust as bread came out of the oven. It grounded me again in something I could control. Customers didn't know what had happened, but they noticed something had changed. "You look different," one woman said. Stronger, maybe. I smiled. Flour therapy, I joked. But deep down I knew it wasn't just the baking. It was reclaiming my life crumb by crumb, loaf by loaf. Dad began driving me to work early in the mornings, partly for company, partly because he didn't trust Rafael's temper yet. One dawn, as the city stretched awake, he said, "You know, Filha, pain doesn't end a family. It shows who your real family is." I looked out at the pale Lisbon sky and whispered, "I think I finally understand that." Anna called a few days later to update me on the case. The fraud and identity theft charges were moving forward, and the evidence was overwhelming. Rafael had missed another appointment with his counselor and was now facing potential jail time. I didn't feel joy at the news, just closure. I thanked Anna and hung up, then turned to find Dad watching from the doorway. "It's almost over," I said. He nodded. "No, Filha. It's just beginning. The rebuilding." We rebuilt slowly, deliberately. Every evening, I'd light a candle at dinner. Not for religion, but for gratitude. Milo called it the happy light. Lily started writing little notes and taping them to the fridge. "Mommy is brave. Grandpa makes the best pancakes. We are okay." Each note felt like a small miracle. I began setting aside €10 a week from my salary, not much, but it was something. "Our safety fund," I told Lily. She drew a little heart on the jar. And when Christmas came for the first time, the house was full of warmth instead of fear. We decorated a small tree together, using handmade paper stars and cookies strung with ribbon. Lily and Milo laughed until midnight. Dad told stories of my childhood, and Mom played old Fado songs softly in the background. There were no expensive gifts, but there was peace, and that was enough. Months later, when I finally stood on my balcony one quiet morning, watching the sunrise spill across the rooftops of Lisbon, I realized something had shifted inside me. I was no longer surviving Rafael's damage. I was living beyond it. My hands, once trembling with anxiety, now smelled of vanilla and strength. My children laughed again. My parents slept without worrying about me. And when people at the bakery asked how I managed after everything, I smiled and said, "One loaf at a time. One day at a time." Because healing, I had learned, isn't a single moment of triumph. It's 1,000 quiet choices to protect, to rebuild, to forgive, to believe again. As I looked out over the waking city, I whispered, "We made it." And this time the words didn't tremble. They felt like truth. It's been 9 months since the court ruled in my favor. 9 months since I stood in that cold courtroom, holding Lily's tiny hand in mine while Milo clung to my dress. The judge's words still echo in my mind. Temporary custody awarded to the mother. Since then, life has been quieter. Not perfect, not painless, but honest. Our mornings begin with pancakes and warm sunlight spilling through the window. Lily hums while brushing her hair. Milo laughs every time he drops syrup on his pajamas. I don't rush anymore. I let myself watch them, really see them. Their joy is no longer shadowed by tension. They laugh freely now, unafraid of raised voices or slammed doors. I opened a new account under my name only, something so simple, yet it felt revolutionary. No more hidden withdrawals. No more sleepless nights trying to stretch €50 into a week's worth of meals. Every cent I earn from the bakery now goes toward the kids' needs. And a small trust fund my parents helped me set up. For the first time, I feel safe, not just financially but emotionally. Rafael's visits are supervised. I see him every other weekend when he picks up the children under the watch of a family counselor. He tries to act calm, but I can still sense the guilt flicker in his eyes when Lily hesitates to hug him. I used to pity him. Now I simply pray he finds help for the children's sake. Papa Eduardo still calls from Qatar every night, even when his shift runs late. He speaks softly, as if afraid that the sound of his voice might break me. "You're strong, mihija," he says. "You saved them." Mama sits beside me when I'm tired, brushing my hair just like when I was little. She doesn't say much, but her presence alone is a kind of healing I didn't know I needed. Some evenings I take Lily and Milo to the park near the river. The air smells of salt and bread from the bakery down the street. Lily skips ahead holding a red balloon, while Milo chases after her shouting, "Wait for me." I watch them from the bench, the setting sun painting their faces gold. And in that light I realize something. My life didn't end when Rafael broke our trust, it began again. From the rubble we built something real. something unbreakable. Lessons learned, reflection. Love is not blind sacrifice. I learned that being kind doesn't mean accepting cruelty. Love must come with boundaries or it turns into a cage. A mother's strength is quiet, but unshakable. I didn't roar or fight with fists. I stood my ground with calm, with truth. And that was enough. Financial abuse is still abuse. It hides behind everyday excuses. I'll handle the bills. Trust me with the money. Don't ignore the signs. Control disguised as love is still control. Healing is not forgetting, it's reclaiming. Every bruise left a lesson. Every tear became a seed for something stronger. I don't erase the past. I grow from it. Children don't need a perfect home, just a safe one. I used to think I had to give them everything. Now I know what matters most is peace, laughter, and truth. Tonight, as I tuck Lily into bed, she whispers, "Mom, are we happy now?" I pause, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "Yes, sweetheart," I whisper back. "We are." And for the first time in years, I truly believe it. If my story touched you, if it reminded you that survival is possible, that rebuilding is real, please like, share, and subscribe. Not for me, but for every woman still trying to find her way back from silence. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is start again.